are we ready to introduce Nan, who is our photo contest editor? She's got some big shoes to fill. Howard did such a great job, but I think we're in really good hands, and I'm excited to see all the great photos.
Great. Well, I'm happy to be here tonight. And as Kathy said, I have huge shoes to fill. And I want to start out by thanking Howard Gultz for all the years of work he did and also the coaching. Anything I do right tonight, I credit Howard. Anything that goofs up, that's on me. But Howard has really, laid a great foundation and organization and structure for all this. And I'm just benefiting from it. So the other thing right off the bat I'll say is I'm thrilled we had so many contributors, and thank you all. The contributors are the ones that really make the contest. I fill out the slides and all, but it's been really fun, and we have so many new contributors this year. So I want to say thank you. We love keeping it rolling, and I love to see the new perspectives that we get from some of our new contributors. We had 246 total submissions this year. Typically, we wind up with 45% in pictorial and some in scientific and usually twice as many in humorous scientific. But we have 45 contributors this year. And you can, there we go. And then if we looked at the next slide, we also had a ton of different species in each one. We usually don't sort of count them in other and humor, but just out of curiosity, just when you're not, prescribed by just pictorial or scientific, even among the other and the humor, we've got 44 different species that we did. And compared to last year, 2022, we're seeing.
I can't find the.
Can you do that?
No.
Nope, we're not advancing here. Hang on a second.
Give me 1 second. Oh, there we go. Sorry.
We're down only a few. And interestingly, we went way up in scientific. So I think that's great. I'm hoping that's a result of, all the 4A work that's been going on in the educational programs and speakers and hopefully our encouragement for people to try a new category, which we're going to challenge you to do again next year. But I think it's looking pretty good. We have just gotten today the slides out and the ballots out to our judges, and they have until the first week of January to really go through it all. But hopefully that most of them are on tonight and maybe listening to the commentary that we're going to have. I want to thank our ID experts, Ron Spinoza, John Lamprecht, Kathy Eric, and Anna Gerenday for stepping in. We had a few that stumped the experts and some that we're still going back and forth on that we'll mention tonight. But mostly I just want to say, thank you for all your work that you're doing. So I'm going to start first with the pictorial category. And I will say Ron and John and frankly, anybody else who's an expert can jump in. We've got about 20 seconds of picture, but we can actually share a lot of information even in 20 seconds so that we can all be done on time. But we'll go through the pictorial category first and, say the name. I'll talk to you about what the common name is. If I know a few facts to throw in, great. And then Ron and John, you jump in too, if you would. The key thing with the different categories, if you've read the rules or participated, is that the pictorial category really is based on the quality of the photo, looking at things like the overall composition, the light, the positioning, where it's taken, the type of fungi, depth of field. We're looking at the aesthetic quality, the artistic quality, and kind of the common way we convey this often is just a photo worthy of being on a calendar or a greeting card. There's no one way to do it. We have a whole mix. It's really good. Some close-ups, some far away, lots of mushrooms, but that's kind of the standard for this first group that we have. So let's get into it. So here's our first one. You might have seen these a lot in the fall. Hericium coralloides. It's sometimes called a coral tooth fungus. Grows on wood. And I'm not sure if Ron or Kathy or John want to add anything about it. It's an edible if it's on hardwood or?
Yeah, I think it's edible on any wood that it's found on, and we lots of times call it lion's mane. There are 3 different species of Hericium, so sometimes you almost have to have them next to each other to see which one you have. So this is a beautiful example of that.
And white mushrooms are always one of the hardest ones to present in this. And this shows nice contrast. So
yeah, hard to photograph.
Our next one, Phallus imputicus, the common stinkhorn. And if you've ever seen these, you really know what that's about. The spores are on the green head of it. It's not like spores in gills. It's not like spores in puffballs. And it's stinky and it attracts insects that then spread the spores. The stipe on that is very, it's hollow on the inside. John and Ron, what else would you add there?
it stinks.
Yeah.
I love how this one's just bursting through the pavement or
Is
the
that pavement?
dirt.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
soil.
Yeah, the upshot gives
Wow.
it a lot of action. I like that.
Looks like it's coming through pea gravel.
Yeah.
Really.
It looks like asphalt pavement.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Our next one,
Yeah.
sulphureus, chicken of the woods. It's one of 2 species that's referred to as chicken of the woods, or this species is also referred to as sulfur shelf. And so you probably know it's a choice mushroom. And I'm often battling people for them if I see them in the forest. What other comments on this one? We have a few pictures of these.
It's very photogenic. They are.
Yeah, this is a terrific picture. I love the vibrance. I like the angle at which the camera comes in, and you can see both up underneath, but you can see the bottom ones, you can see the top of it. So it's really a nice display of that specimen. We've, not surprisingly, because they're common, but they're gorgeous and dramatic. We have a lot of Amanita muscaria. This is the variety Gesawi. It's also called the fly agaric. You don't want to be eating these, but they're very nice. They grow out of a volvus, or kind of an egg shape. Start in the ground and push up, and the spots on them really are pieces. They're veil remnants. When it pushes through the veil, as it keeps growing, the veil, some of the skirt of the veil falls down, but the spots on top are really pieces of that veil. It's not like a Dalmatian where sort of the spots come through.
So I heard this one's going to be renamed. So
is it? Okay.
be on the
It
lookout.
is in the process. Yeah.
It may not be muscaria anymore. I think the new proposed name is Amanita chrysoblema, maybe, if I'm getting
No, that might be the more orangish version of this, but yeah, I mean, it's just stand by. There's always changes.
We've got that one coming up too.
Yep.
So here's our elm cap, Hypsizygus ulmarius, and you've probably seen these again, usually on dead elms. That they're really a thick, meaty mushroom, and really solid, really pretty gills from underneath. We've got one or two other pictures too, where you can see some of the great gill structure as well as on this one.
Actually, they're usually on box elder.
Right.
Is that right? Okay.
They're elm caps, but they're called elm caps, but you hardly ever see them on elm. They're almost always on box elders, usually coming out of a wound or a knot hole.
Thank you. Our next one, Cereopteris squamosus. We see a lot of these, especially in the spring. They're often the first one that we see. It's also called a pheasant back or dryad saddle. And these are kind of young. They're kind of emerging, but some of them wind up as big as a dinner plate or so. It's not uncommon to see them coming out of, a kind of dead elm tree, and they're often clustered. It's rare to see, not rare, but you more often see a number of them emerging. They're edible, but they're kind of leathery, and they're edible if they're super young and they're more tender. But the one I tried tasted like that Charlie Chaplin movie where he's trying to eat the boot, out west. The next one we have, Calycina citrina, often called lemon drops. They really kind of pop there, and I like angle here. In fact, what's so attractive are just all the kind of different spheroids there. They really, kind of caught what's sort of attractive about that.
And they're tiny, tiny, tiny. So to get this close up is really impressive too.
Totally agree. Yeah, this is hard to get that well focused on something so tiny.
So they are actually cups too.
Yes.
Let's see.
Yep.
Lentinellus vulpinus. Oops. Here growing on a log. I don't know much about this one as much. Ron and John and Kathy, any?
I don't know.
Well, let's see. There's the more common one is Lentinellus ursinus, also called a bear's paw, and I don't know if you can really tell. Use the vulpinus, which I think the vulpin is reference to a fox, but I think it has it has a little stem on it that comes out, which you can kind of see it in there, whereas the other one attaches more broadly.
I like this shot because it gets all those folds and all, and you're getting all sides of it, but it looks very active. It's not very static or two-dimensional. It's very three-dimensional shot. So well done on that one.
Those are really bitter too. They look kind of oyster-like, but if you taste them, they are really bitter. Yeah.
Our next one's Inoidium lycoperdon. You first think, well, maybe it's a puffball, maybe it's a slime mold like a wolf's milk, but it's a different slime mold, and it's commonly called a false puffball. It's bigger than you see with the more pinkish wolf slime. But I really like this. I like that you caught the little droplets on it.
Mm-hmm.
You really get the sense of the spheroid nature of it, and even the texture of it. So any other thoughts?
I'm a big fan of gutations, so that's what the droplets are.
Yeah.
So
This is a new one for me.
yeah.
It will change color as it matures and become kind of like a silver skin. And it's about, I don't know, like an inch to 2 inches in diameter, as opposed to the wolf's milk, which is about the size of a pea.
Okay. Yeah, the guttation, for those of you who aren't familiar with the word, is really a natural process that many mushrooms do. You don't see them that often, but most of them are capable of shedding excess metabolites and fluids and all. And you'll sometimes see them coming out of the bottom of polypores, but really almost any kind of mushroom can do it. This is very pretty here. Usually I see them colored. This looks like a little more clear, just light milky colored. So it's very pretty. So our next one, Hericium coralloides again, coral tooth fungus. This one is looks like it's starting to age, which is kind of fun to see the color change too on them. And I also like the angle on this one in the background, kind of the narrow depth of field in the background there. It really makes it look three-dimensional and puffy. We have Callicina citrina again. Is this the same one? Maybe we
That
don't.
looks like the same
I think
one.
we did the same one. Never mind. We'll drop that one. Well done. Phylotopsis nidulans. So this one is an orange mop oyster. And kind of peeking out there. John or Ron, anybody? I have never seen one of these, so I can't really comment.
Well, they're pretty striking when you see them in the wild. This one's so hidden that that doesn't come out as much, but
they get stinky too.
yes.
It's kind of fun to see this shot with it sort of peeking.
So that's one that has a sewer gas odor.
Not choice. Our next one, Hygrosope conica, witch's cap, and this one, of course, pops right out at you. And a lot of times I'll see them where they've been gnawed or eaten a little bit, but this is really a nice specimen because it's it's intact, and the colors are always attractive. So I think it's a really great shot there.
And they stain black. That's another characteristic of them that's not showing on this one, but it's pretty.
Yeah. Okay, so we have a Boletus Panophilus, a pine bolete or a pine king bolete. I love this shot here of it emerging through the pine needles, and then the blurred background, the narrow focus is really a nice shot there. It looks like a slug is taking a couple bites out of it so far, but that's very nice. Oops. Next, Pleurotus austriatus. It's a common oyster. Beautiful shot there with the staging, the foreground, and then the ones going back. And I love the mosses and then the blurred trees. So from an aesthetic point of view, that is a really nice shot. We have another chicken of the woods, or a sulfur shelf. This one's a little bit older, not quite as orange, but at the base of the tree, Laetiparus sulphurus. On a living tree, I think it can be parasitic and can be up. This species can be up high or low. When it's on a dead tree, Ron has coached me that it's saprobic and all. It's often on oak, but I've harvested one the size of a beach ball on a maple tree, so it's basically can be on other hardwoods as well.
I've picked them off of ash and cherries as well. You will need to fix the spelling of Laetiparus. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep.
Bulgaria inquinans, again, the black bulgur fungus, or sometimes called the button fungus, or the bachelor's button, or black jelly drops. It's got a lot of nicknames here. But they'll glow in clusters. Sometimes they're darker black than even in this picture. You've really caught a lot of them there, the photographer. And I like it against the rough bark there with a little bit of green. It's a very nice shot. And another Amanita muscaria, variety Gesawi. Next year, maybe it'll have another name. And we have a number of the species in the show here, but every one of them is different stages of growth or emerging, or colors or spot patterns. And and they are just sort of more of those happy mushrooms. You see, they're not kind of just an LBM there sitting in the ground. But I like this one. It almost looks like a parent sheltering a child, and it's got the dirt and the needles on that. So I think, and it fills the frame too. I like that aspect of this photo. Coprinus comatus. So we've got a shaggy mane here. This one looks like it's growing out of sand, and I love the delicate little the annulus that's still on the stipe there. And the photographer has really taken a shot where you can really feel the texture of that cap. And that species growing out of sort of the plain sand, you don't have a lot of texture at the bottom, is really effective on making that mushroom pop. So I really like this one too. Next, so this is a great example of one where all the experts, have been coaching and going back and forth on what is this interesting mushroom. It kind of, in one respect, looks like, yeah, we see that all the time. And on the other hand, when you look closer, you're like, I'm not sure what it is. We've come up thinking that it's probably a species of Mycena, maybe Mycena liana. We looked at it considering whether maybe it was a parrot, like a waxy cap and all. And John and Ron, maybe you can chat a little bit more, but it's kind of fun to sort of debate it and not have an easy answer, because it makes you focus in on, the gills and the marking in the top of the cap and where it's growing.
And actually all the documentation, as you get down to even both species, it says, depending on the growth stage, it can be very difficult to ID either one of them, but especially if it is the parrot mushroom or the hygrosabe, which actually is undergoing a new name, because that particular one starts out green and then it fades pretty quickly to this kind of yellowish and a pale and that kind of stuff. But typically it's not in a clustered growth like this one, whereas Mycena is much more commonly found clustered on hardwoods. So
Yeah, I would say
So-
let's.
Yeah.
Oh,
I don't know.
sorry.
I think this is a good example of how it is often difficult to do an ID just from a single photo where you're not seeing other angles. And the other thing is that, if that it could be the Mycena liana, which when is new is like this brilliant bright orange, but then it can fade. So like the pictures that you see in your book might not really look like that. But now in the age of the internet, you can go on like Google Images and you can see a couple of hundred different ones, and you can see some of the more mature and faded ones as well as the young ones.
Yeah.
I would also say that sometimes, especially Mycena, are what's known as hygrophanous, where they're really sensitive to moisture. So if you're taking a picture of something like Ron said, it's older and it's after a rain, sometimes things are discolored
Right.
because of the amount of water they've taken on.
Oh, interesting
Yep.
point. Yeah, it's fun because, in the pictorial category, the goal is not documenting every feature either. So, I mean, there's nothing wrong with the fact that we all can't narrow it down
No,
because it's a
it's so beautiful.
spectacular feature. And, congratulations, you sort of stumped the experts, at least on a one photo submission. But it's a really nice thing, and your eyes drawn back on the log to the back mushroom.
and that is the point that Ron was making too, that oftentimes from one photograph, it can be very difficult.
Yep, exactly. Latiparus cincinnatus. So this is the other species of chicken of the woods. You can see it's got the white tips around the edges, bright orange, at least at this phase of it. This is the one that is not referred to as sulfur shelf like the previous one we saw. This tends to grow more on the base or the roots of oak trees. I think, Ron, were you saying that it basically gets some of its nutrients, right? It starts to sort of kill the tree because it gets a lot of its nutrients right out of the roots or the base?
Yeah, well, that could be the case. Or if it's dead, it can still be eating the roots. And some people think that this species is a better tasting one than the sulfur shelf, and I kind of agree with that.
I think so as
But
well.
they're both good.
As do I.
Okay.
Has anybody ever seen these not on the side of a tree instead of just on the? I've only seen them on roots. I've never seen them on growing up the side of any tree.
I've not seen them very high up on the tree at all. I mean, maybe a few inches up off the ground, but that's it.
Yeah.
I have once seen them both species growing on the same stump.
Wow.
And there was some of this growing on the ground, but there was also some growing up on the wood stump itself.
And where was that exactly?
Yeah, right.
We better keep moving on these.
Yes, let's go.
Or we'll be here till midnight.
That was in
Foliota sclerosa, shaggy scaly cap. So it's one of the mini foliota kinds. You've probably seen some, and you will see some in the pictures where they're slimy and lugubrious and all. And this is a drier species. Apioperdon, piriforme, pear-shaped puffballs. They really are. I love this picture, not only because of the angle and the mix of colors and shapes, but I love it against this black log. From a visual point of view, they pop.
Mhm.
It's also been taken at an angle that pulls your eye back into the picture. So visually, this is really nicely constructed. Our next one, Mycena galericulata, milk bonnet is the other name for it. Kind of interesting location there with the hole in the ground or hole in the tree, whatever that is. I don't know, any other thoughts on
Well,
that?
seldom do you see one. Usually there's a whole bunch of them. So, yeah.
The next one we've got a Genopolis species. Again, another one where we got species in here is because we probably don't have enough identifying features to bring it down to the species level. But this one's kind of pretty with the red tinges all around the edges of it, and it's got a nice kind of textured feel to it. You kind of want to touch it or pet it almost like a velvety feel.
Mm-hmm.
Here's one of several species referred to generally as a honey mushroom. The Armillaria species. We've got a couple others, different kinds coming up. I like this shot. It just kind of pulls your eye back, and you can see some other mushrooms there in the background.
Yeah, there's a lot of detail on that little cap.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a very pretty specimen. We've got Amanita multisquamosa. It's a white panther. So I think this is one where if I would first start thinking, man, is this an Amanita muscaria? But then as you look, it's much paler. And I really, I like this because I haven't seen it before, but I also like that it happens to be a specimen where you can see in the photo there, a lot of the patches on the top. You can still see the ring, even though it's a down shot shooting down, you still get a ton of detail there. And then it pops against those brown leaves too. So that's a nice shot. So the Morchella species, the morels. So these are kind of fun too, because we've gone back, we've got a number of morel pictures and chatted with the contributors on these, because so often some of the identification depends on whether they're popping up in a former burn site, high altitude, whether they're by aspen and all. This species was not wasn't a fire spot or former burn site. It's considered a black morel, a group of morels that end up, as they grow, sometimes getting these black ridges on them.
And that's usually one of the main identifying features of what separates the white or the yellow morels from the black morels, is just that the color of the ridges tends to be much darker than the pits.
This is a nice shot too, again, because you can look at you can see what it's growing in. It fills the frame, which makes it a very effective picture. And yet you've still got some background there, slightly out of focus, which makes, really pulls your focus into the mushroom. So we've got another Cereoporus squamosus, a pheasantback. This one's a little more developed than the last one, so it's fun to see the different phases that come through the pictures. Again, this is not a fully mature one again, and tends to be more often a spring mushroom. This one's still emerging. I like this where it almost looks like a little family here, and the shot is kind of interesting, with the log kind of on top, or however it was taken and submitted, so you're really seeing the attachment there, and yet you're still seeing the top of it. So it's a great specimen in the angle it was taken, and then the background kind of falls away. There's almost nothing, and that's hard to do. So it's a very nice picture. Chlorophyllum molybdides, if I'm saying it right. Green gill or green spored lepiota. And you'll see these in mulch, or you see them in lawns. They're poisonous, but you really know them when they grow. They wind up having distinctively green spore prints in gills. I once found a 13-inch one, bigger than a dinner plate, and it makes a spectacular spore print. Again, the angle of this is really interesting. I mean, it looks huge from this angle. It's really kind of a fun shot up, and you can sort of see that initial pinkish underside and underside. Let's see. Armillaria melia. So this is a different kind of honey mushroom than that single one that we saw before. There's a lot of species in this genus that are called honey mushroom, but I think Ron has told me that this melia species is really kind of the true honey mushroom. Again, this is a good find and a nice shot. You get that tactile feel for it. Those honey mushrooms are great for giving you the opportunity to pull that out. And it's kind of fun. You got a touch of a little bit of green in the upper corner, and you've got a little grass in the front, but you really have an interesting shot of different developing stages of this specimen. So this is a fun one, Leucoprinus birnbaumii. It's a yellow plant pot dappling is the nickname, and it is the common name or the nickname, and it can be found growing in potted plants. And I believe I was told this one was in a potted plant. So you can sit around your living room and watch the fungus grow, while you're reading the newspaper. Again, I like this shot too, because it's been pulled out of the plant, and I like that because you can see the different development stages. It fills the frame. You've got a couple different shades of yellow. The one on the right has all the spotting on the cap, and then you still see the mycelium in the base of these. So I like it. I like the angle that this has been set up. So that's kind of fun, and that's actually the first one I've seen. So the next one, okay, so this one Paragyrodon Spirosporus, if I'm saying it right, sorry, I didn't study Latin. Its nickname is a leatherneck. And again, I like this shot. You're seeing some of the top, you're seeing some of the underside, you have the forest behind it, but you've got this spectacular defining ring, annulus around it that also looks very viscous and is really kind of part of some of the defining features of this species. We'll talk about a couple other views of this species coming up in a couple other shots, but this one is pretty classic. You can see it's not gilled; it's got pores, so it's a polypore, stem polypore.
That's a really great shot.
Yeah, and again fills the frame. I love that. Trichaptum biforme, purple tooth polypore. And we're looking, of course, at the underside here. It's got the new growth around the outside there is really pretty, but I love this specimen because you're really flowing through the spectrum of those purple on that, and then the green behind it makes it a really beautiful picture.
Yeah, you can also see it starting out as pores and turning into teeth.
Yeah. So here's one we've gone back and forth with, and the question on this, we've got it down right at the moment is Cortinarius, but now the submitter has basically said that if it were Cortinarius, it would have gills, but all the other ones around it that he could see that weren't covered with this, viscous material, they did not have gills. So it's not in Cortinarius. We've been going back and forth right up to 7 p.m. tonight.
Yeah.
So it could be a Paragyrodon. We're not possible, but that's probably the better guess. But Ron and John, we can keep talking about this one. But the shot itself is incredible. Yeah.
So what looks like a cortina is probably slime strands.
Okay.
Right, and that could very well be. I mean, this was difficult, and again, this is another classic example without seeing either a cross section or up underneath that. Sometimes you have to lift the skirt to look underneath there and see what it is. So, sorry.
Yeah. Yeah, but again, I love it. I love it when we get stumped or there's just a discussion, because I learn a lot about, okay, what should I be looking for? What does it look like in different times of the year development? And this is just a great shot. Again, not only fills the screen, but I mean, you really at every spot on this, it's in focus, and you get this sense of how sticky and viscous this mushroom is, and you've got these interesting color tones in it too. Neophablus alveolarius, a hexagonal pored polypore. It almost looks kind of like a tropical flower, sort of. Mm-hmm. And I haven't seen one before, but this is really kind of pretty and nice that there's sort of two samples there in a couple different shapes. And then the green tones on the right are a really nice way to set up this picture.
Yes, you have. You just don't know that you have. This is one of the more common mushrooms you ever find in the woods. If you
Okay.
can't
I'm in
find
the
a
wrong
one of
woods. I
these,
live in the pine forest.
yeah, well, but if you can't find a one of these in the woods, then the woods is dead.
Okay.
So,
Oh,
yeah.
sorry. Go back to that one. Were you going to say something, John?
Oh,
no.
I was just going to say that the flower looking one is like a twin or more joined together.
Probably.
Ah,
And
interesting.
so, yeah, and they have a lateral stem. And anyway, that's really cool, the way those have grown together like that to form.
Very pretty and unique.
Yeah.
Nice balance to it too. Volvariella bombacina, a tree Volvariella, kind of emerging here. You can see the little bit more mature one in the back, which is really kind of fun. But I love this kind of emerging one before you can see the gills and everything, because you can really see the texture on the cap there and it coming out, and you know, the little one in the background pulls your eye back into that picture. So that's a really nice shot.
And that vulva it comes out of is really very kind of papery and just kind of got a really unique texture to it.
Kind of silky.
Yeah, it's nothing, well, it's nothing like an Amanita vulva.
Right.
Yeah.
Pleurotus levis here, and I love it with the snow. It's just kind of a fun picture, feels very Minnesota, Wisconsin-y. And I kind of like the snow on it too. You don't see much of the cap. It sort of teases you, but yet you got some great focus on the gills, and I love the attachments there, the stipe on that. You know, so often we focus on just the pretty cap or something, but this is a gorgeous picture, and it's not just because it's got some kind of a pretty cap. So it's really nicely framed too. It's some Entoloma species here. It's, you know, I love seeing the gills there with the leaf, in that kind of shooting straight down is fun. It doesn't work a lot of the time, and this straight down shot really works here. It doesn't look two-dimensional. You know, it almost looks like there's movement in the gills there. And the perfections of the gill and the circle are offset by all these pine needles going in different directions, and that very pretty maple leaf in there.
Ron, are the gills on this, do they sometimes connect to each other? Is that what I'm seeing, or are they just wavy? Like right here?
Well, there's secondary gills, and I see what you're saying. It looks like they're connected.
So interesting.
It also looks, I think I'm seeing a little purple in the rim and maybe in the center. So there's Entolomas come in a lot of different colors, but there's some real beautiful purple ones. This one doesn't show it, I don't think, but they eventually will have kind of pinkish gills, that they have a pink spore print also.
The next one, Dactyphora. Okay, this is the one that's, you know, you say
Yeah.
tomato, I say tomato. Dactyphora palulawana, a white jelly. They're kind of fun. You can, these are the ones where you can harvest them and dry up, and then kind of a magic trick with kids where you can just put them back in a bowl of water and they rehydrate, and, you know, they feel, you know, kind of like a fun sort of a jelly kind of thing. So that's really I really like that shot. And it's sort of fun that it sticks out above the wood, so you can get the forest and the wood in there. So it's a nice angle, and you get a real good sense of the three-dimensional nature of this.
That texture and the.
I love that one. Coprinellus disseminatus, fairy ink cap. And I'll just comment on the photograph in itself, which is really lovely. The way you've got the ones in the foreground, not in focus, pulling your eye back. You can see up and through the cap, and then you have the light, the beautiful light feature in the back. Do you want to talk about the mushroom panel, or it's just a
I love being able to
inky cap?
see the gills with the light shining through. But
And these are one of the inky caps that don't actually really turn to ink. They just sort of fall apart. That's what disseminatus kind of means. They just disseminate. They just kind of they fall apart pretty much where they ink.
Yeah, teeny tiny.
Yep, they're very small.
This is a
Yeah, good find and a lovely shot. Amanita flavoconica, yellow patches. You can kind of see on the ridge there, kind of the little patches, but spectacular color here. And I like too, I like that it's not sort of some perfect mushroom where there's nothing wrong. I like seeing that it's part of the forest and it looks like something's eaten it and all. And it's kind of fun. Then you're seeing the inside while you're seeing the outside. And then you've got a good shot here of the color on the stipe too.
mm-hmm.
So
A lot of little critters like to eat mushrooms, and even amanitas, and even some of the amanitas that might be deadly, you'll see nibble marks on them.
Yep. We've got Lycopodium perlatum. And again, this is the gem-studded puffball. I think we saw one before, maybe that was the pear-shaped ones.
You saw the pear shape.
Yeah, the warded puffball or devil's snuff box. This one's kind of fun because you sort of see it on the side in a little browner color, and then you see the top-down shots, and you catch really the great detail in this. And then it's so fun having the back side and the front side of the different leaves in the forest. So
it's really nicely framed.
And is this the one I think you're saying might change names next year, right? So Amanita muscaria, variety muscaria. That's also a fly agaric. This is kind of a fun one because you've got the little ones in the front, and those may be the Amanita muscaria gassawii. Hard to tell until it gets older or grows up, right?
There is an oranger version of what we've always called even gassawii, but there's a much more strikingly oranger version, and that one in particular is going to be renamed, and it's hard to tell what the yellower one's going to be.
Okay. Well, great picture with all of it in there, and just what a great specimen with the patch pattern and all in there.
Mm-hmm.
That one really pops out. Boletonellus mariolotis, ash bolete. This is really fun. I mean, with the ash boletes, the fun is underneath with these sort of webbed patterns here, and then it got the crazy folding of this specimen here. So it's really fun to see, and the photographer again has filled the frame on a sample like this. That's really a great way to do it. So we can see a little bit of the top, but the underside is so much fun here, and we've captured the dark browns going all the way up to the bright yellows around the edges as it ages. Trichia decipiens. This is a slime mold, and kind of speaks for itself. I mean, it's really fun. The color, the patterns, and then the gaps where it isn't makes it even more fun. And it's filled the frame, and you've got a little bit of kind of forest litter on there too.
And again, these are so tiny, so getting decent focus on this is very tough. So this is good.
Well done.
Nice.
Not a mushroom.
Okay.
We don't care. We
It's
allow them.
Americanum. So this is kind of like the Hericium we saw earlier, but this one is you can see it's got a little more pom-pom puff to it, sort of a bear's head tooth fungus. This species is referred to, and again, great shot here. And you've got two species, and you're kind of shooting up, so you get the sense of that sort of pom-pom feel, I guess I would call it, that does differentiate it from the other species, which look more like icicles, if you remember the other one. So I hope after you took the picture, you harvested it and ate it. Yeah, we've got the Oreoboletus russellii, so Russell's bolete. And this is so fun. I mean, just the size of the cap relative to the stipe is so fun, but then you've got this tactile stipe there, and but you've got great focus on that cap too, so you get a sense of the texture there.
Really cool. This bolete, there's so many different boletes and it's hard to identify them sometimes, and this one is a giveaway with the stem. It's fun to capture that.
So Neolintinus lapidus. The train wrecker is kind of the nickname, and Ron was just telling me the other day, it can grow on pine, or it can grow on pine treated with creosol, which is what's used on railroad ties. So when it starts to grow on these ties, it starts to rot the railroad ties, and it begets that nickname, the train wrecker. So I like it's kind of fun here because you've got a great shot with the background in the foreground, the little yellow in the foreground, but then these small ones next to it. And you've got a great shot of the base of it too. Kind of I don't want to call it tufts because that's more of how you describe a cap, but you've got the crackling cap there, and then you've got the young ones. It's just a really nice picture. Mycena purpureo fusca, purple-edged bonnet, which I gather is rare in this part of the country. And so you get a few rare points here if you've submitted this one. But aside from just seeing it, which is really pretty to see all kind of the purple tint, and I'll just seeing that attachment, that kind of fuzzy attachment there is really beautiful. Sometimes we just see the caps or the stems, but sometimes you pull back that bark on the dead trees and you can see even more of it. So I love that you've been whoever took this captured the entire the entire fruiting body there. Any other thoughts on that one? That's very pretty. And here's up close. We saw a log before full of these, the Bulgaria's inquinans, or the black jelly or black bulgur fungus. Kind of fun to see one, just a single one up close. And you can see it almost looks like it's kind of leathery or something, or could even be a decoration on a shoe or something. But it's fun to see that the texture on the edge, and then a little bit closer view of that kind of blacker top. So that was kind of a nice to see up close. Another Amanita, Gasawi, Amanita muscaria variety Gasawi. I like this one too. I mean, the patches on it are kind of fun. They're sometimes a little bigger than you sometimes see. They're still kind of hanging on there, and yet the stem is bright white. It's a great specimen, and you framed it perfectly with the kind of the green. It's not trying to do anything ultra dramatic. It just fills the frame, and you've got nice balance with the color there. It's a great specimen too. So we got another Pholiota species. You might remember the shaggy, scaly cops we saw earlier, Pholiota, that were dry and tufted. And this is another species, but you can see how slimy these are. And we need more information to identify where we'd be able to identify the exact species, but there are a number that are kind of this slimy. But it's kind of nicer because you've got the little baby ones sticking off on the right, and kind of looks like a little family of them, but they grow in clusters. You don't usually just see one of them. Anybody else on that one comment? There's a Mycena species, and this one's kind of fun because you've got you're taking it a little bit top down, not totally top down, but the coloring on the cap is lovely. So it really brings the focus on that, and the way that the mushrooms tilt and bend different ways make you focus on kind of the differences in the caps and the different browns, and yet you've got a really nice background there behind those. So we have another morel, a Morchella species, and this one I was told was also taken in a burn site, a former burn site. And this is kind of fun too, because I like that it's not completely centered. I like mushrooms that are off center a lot of the time. And this one has that interesting tilt. And it's almost juxtaposition to the trees in the background there, kind of leaning a little way. And you're shooting, it's growing in a place where you're shooting, I wouldn't quite say up, but usually when you're shooting, morels, you don't get kind of this angle. And I like that half of it's in the sun and half of it's in the shade. And I wish I could pick it and eat it. This one I was told also that was, sorry about that, Kath, was growing at 6,000 feet. I think it was out in Wyoming, I was told, at 6,000 feet, but in a former burn site, but that's really pretty. So the next one, here's another one of those Arabolides russellii, Russell's bolete. And I don't need to say much more, but the specimen is fantastic to have two together there, similar size. And I like how it's composed in the picture, and that you've got these sort of yellowy greens in the back, right behind the cap of the mushroom, but yet the stipes are coming down together, and you can really see that texture there. That is really beautiful. And here is a fun one, Cantharellus flavus. This one's not typical, of course, because it's deformed, and we're not sure what is deforming it. But the far right one does look mostly like a young yellow chanterelle. So whatever is deforming it, the odds are they're all some kind of a chanterelle. So it's kind of fun to find and not see, your perfect mushroom made for a guidebook. But I love seeing all these different, it even gives it more texture. You think of a chanterelle so much as being that beautiful, smooth yellow top that winds up turning into sort of a vase. And this is kind of fun because you have so much texture on it, but you see the yellow stem still, and then you sort of see that smooth one on the right. So I'm not sure I would eat the ones that were deformed, but it's a really fun find. This is a very, very nice picture, and just a few little touches of green in there. And we've often talked about how hard it is to find, let alone photograph with such great detail as here. This Chloriciboria oregonascens, if that's how I'm saying it right. It's a green elf cap is the common name, or a green staining fungus, and it'll turn the wood, kind of the same color too. We have another picture of where the wood's stained, but this is great to get this close, this much focus. You really see the texture here. I can't say I've seen another picture where I can see the texture on it so well, and then you're still capturing the edge on it. And the color is fantastic. So that's a great one. Here's another Foliola alnicula complex. It's another Foliota. This one's kind of fun because it almost looks like they're leaning, and then you've got so many just hinting in the background, and yet your eye is pulled toward these, and you can see the base really well with the orange. So it's really nicely done here. And then you can see, the caps so often are one of the distinguishing features here. So it's nice you can see that detail there. I am going to another Amanita muscaria, variety Gesawi. Like I say, it's so fun. This is a great one sheltering the other one. It's taken almost exactly on the same plane as the cap, and the cap is at a point where it's really sort of, frisbee shaped, disc shaped, and yet you can see the skirt hanging down on that first one, and you've got great patches and great colors. So that's really kind of fun. And so we have the jack-o'-lantern Omphalatus illudens. It can grow to be much bigger than this, and a lot of times at the base of oak trees, I think. Sometimes people confuse it, especially at the young stage, with chanterelles, but this is one that is toxic. And if you harvest a couple samples and go sit in a perfectly dark room for about 20 minutes and get your eyes used to the dark, you will see it has a little bit of a green glow, which gives it its jack-o'-lantern name. Anything else you would say about that? Or
no, just I've never noticed the sort of the belly buttons on them so much, and I think, Ron, is that sort of the meaning of omphalloid or omphalotus?
Yeah.
Got a belly button.
Right.
Yeah. Well, this is a nice shot too, because you get the sense of how it grows so densely and thick. I mean, they're just sort of a meaty mushroom, not that you should eat it again. Don't eat it. But
It is
it really, yeah.
grown out of some kind of buried wood, so it always grows out of wood. Yep.
Another Amanita muscaria variety, Gesawari. What a great cluster these are too. And it's fun because this it's framed and taken at an angle where you really see that the color changing on the cap. You know, that's such a great feature. And yet you still see the bulbous base on these so clearly coming out of the vulva that they're growing out of. Great specimen and great way to capture so many of those features. But, you know, that is definitely a, a calendar picture there. And they're kind of perfect. I mean, I've rarely seen, you can see one, but I rarely see an entire cluster that looks like it's not yet been nibbled on or rotting away or knocked over. So it's kind of a fun little family there to look at. Chlorophyllum rhacodes. This is a shaggy parasol, one of, I think, 3 chlorophyllum species called this, is what Ron has told me. But these are beautiful. You see that the shaggy on the shaggy parasol. I also like, I like seeing the stem on it, on the stipe, where you've got that color change. And it's a pretty shot in the pine needles as well. You don't need tons and tons of every color of the rainbow to make it great shot so often. And sometimes just couple of key color tones really are effective, like they are here. Very clear picture. So regardless of what point on that pretty decent sized cap you're looking at, the photographer here has gotten some really nice detail. So here's one that is uncommon, a Lacaria bicolor. And it's kind of, I have not seen one, and it's kind of almost like a spongy cap there and an interesting base, but I don't know much about it. And I don't know if you guys do either, but
this is new to me.
It's new to me too.
Yeah,
Right.
if we had one of the key things on that, if you looked at the base further down, it would be kind of a purplish color, and I think that's where it gets the bicolor.
Where it comes from.
Yeah.
Well, that photograph gets a couple of those extra rare points.
Mm-hmm.
Well done. Amanita muscaria, again. This is kind of fun because you see it at the younger stage where it's still got a thicker stipe, thicker base still coming out of the vulva, and it hasn't, it's pushing through the veil with the spots, but you can see it's not that far along there. So a beautiful color filling the frame, and you've got those, the touches of the foliage behind it. And that lighter yellow, the really light yellow on the stem is really nice. It kind of sets off the cap. Foliota squarosa, again, the shaggy scaly cap, or shaggy foliota, or scaly foliota. This is kind of pretty. I like it because there's sun in the photo, but it's not on the specimen. It's kind of dappling behind it. And then the specimen, it kind of, for me, it makes the specimen look very three-dimensional, not just sort of a singular blob of them. And then the detail on all of those is really nice. Isn't that pretty? Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes the sunlight is actually harder for photographing. So they did a nice job of letting it peek in.
So the next one, Amanita frostiana, named after the first person to identify it, Mr. or Ms. Frost, Dr. Frost. The main difference on this from the regular fly agaric, the Amanita muscaria Gisawi, is the yellow stem and the yellow annulus there. You remember we've seen a lot of, white stems on the previous ones. This is nice because you've got that annulus kind of hanging down, but also you've got that white vulva there. And it's kind of a pretty angle with those sort of big leaves around it. It's a very pretty picture. So this is a Parasola auricama. The RE kind of means gold, and that can be gold on the young ones. Ron has told me this is a rarer species versus the more common Parasola planiculitis. But this is really kind of a fun, active photo. I mean, this is not static at all. And you've got them at, different sizes, that crazy stem on the big one weaving its way through. And, again, it's one of those things where the small ones, you want to kind of just sort of touch them and see what they feel like. And you've got different colors on the caps. And then, you've got this amazing one weaving its way through that's spread open, and you can see the undergills and all. This is a terrific picture. Another Pleurotus Cintrino palliatus. Is that how I'm saying it? I'm sorry.
I think you're going to have to.
There you go. You
spelling maybe it's Citrina pileatus.
There we go.
There's an N in there that doesn't need to be there. I think it's Citrina pileatus.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Yep.
You're catching that.
Yeah.
Ron, you were saying, I think, that this is it's actually invasive where we are out here, so it might have actually escaped cultivation.
That's correct. Yeah.
Yep.
Working its way west is
and north.
Okay. Yeah. This is kind of a fun shot because you're looking at one of them right straight onto the cap, one down into the top, and yet, because of the species, you're also seeing these beautiful ridges on the stem and all. And then it's kind of shot kind of down into the forest. So kind of very fun view. Pleurotus austriatus, the common oyster again. This has really got some beautiful lines going. I think it's growing on a cultivated matrix there, which is kind of fun because the background now doesn't interfere with just looking at the beauty of this particular shot, which is the sheen on the cap, the lines going down, the waviness. And you've got, one on the right peeking in, and you've got the low ones. I mean, it fills the frame, and it's just such a kind of a rich color there. It's very pretty. Stropharia rogosonulatus. It's a wine cap. And the Rogoanulatus, Ron advises me, refers to rough annulus. And if you looked underneath, you'd see, scalloping is almost the wrong word, but you would see that underneath. And then these grow up to be a much wider cap when they've matured. They're great to harvest, put in stroganoff. But I really do, this is a great picture too, because you still got the thick stipes there, and then that nice red coloring there. And they always do look kind of roughish on top. They're usually not this pretty little shiny mushroom.
Sometimes they call the annulus looking kind of like a wagon wheel.
Mm-hmm.
If you find it at the right stage, it's like little spokes.
Yeah, little notches around it. So here we have another shot of the Pleurotus centrino filiatus, the golden oyster. We have a number of these, and I like them because they're all, again, some of them are long on logs, some of them are close, and I like this nice little cluster, these very sweet sitting in the forest, got some green in there, but such a pretty color. So here is another morel, a Morchella tomentosa, a blackfoot morel or a fuzzy-foot morel. And these are associated with burn sites, I think. It kind of looks like it right there. But they're rare in Minnesota, not rare out west, Ron has told me. And I love this shot too, because not only do you have this beautiful cluster of morels, but you really feel that the tactileness, and I'm assuming the ridges are still developing here. So you're seeing it before they get more defined, and maybe they take on a little more color. And it's a great shot too, because it's almost like a monotone photo when you should be taking a monotone photo. A green background on this would undercut the beauty of these sort of silver morels. So this is really, really nicely done. And yet you still got some pine needles in there and defining where it is. another Amanita species. We're not sure which one just because we don't see all the detail. We need to differentiate the species, but kind of very fun. They almost look like they're, sort of growing out of the same base, and they wouldn't be growing out of the same vulva, but they're kind of cute, kind of nesting there. And the angle that's taken, the stems sort of mirror the trunks in the background, and especially since you can't see the tops of the trees, it's kind of fun. So I like that, and you can see the shadow there of them. It looks like the shadow almost of one, and then you've got some sunlight directly, but also in the back that's doppling in the forest. Okay, Boletus edulis complex. So this is one we all want to find, the king bolete, or it's called a porcini, or a king bolete porcini. So this is kind of fun too, because I like it. The photographer's taken the picture almost like a flying saucer kind of. You see the dark, you can sort of see the dark underside in the top, but it's not quite revealing the detail. It's a little mysterious, and it's kind of dark, the dark shadow down. Then you've got the little baby one back in there. So it's kind of a fun picture. And then you really do see the area that it's growing out of. So I like that shot. Another Amanita flavoconia. Again, this one's younger, but it's got that shaggy stipe, the shaggy stem looks really great in here. And in fact, it's sort of juxtaposed with the texture of the log too. So it's kind of fun. They play off each other, but of course the color here pops, and it's young. So the cap the stem almost blends into the cap with all the patches and shagginess there. So, and then you've got the pretty mosses. So here we have one of the old man of the woods here, Strobilomyces flocopus, and this is very pretty shot here. With the lighting, it's kind of funny because the lighting's in the back and the top kind of upper left side, and it's shadowed in the lower right, and it kind of plays on that cap, like the stem is sort of hidden in the shadows, but the light is on this cap, and it really. And the cap is taken with great detail. So I really like this shot. It's nicely taken, nicely staged and framed, but your eye is just pulled right into the detail on that cap. And it's very pretty. So we've got a collared earth star here. So it's one of the gastroid, kind of a puffball gastroid earth star kind of family here. And I don't know if you say geostrum or geostrum, but I tried to look it up and I couldn't find the answer. This is kind of pretty because a lot of times I've seen them and they tend to be dried up, especially if this summer with the drought and all. A lot of them were so dried up. But this one, it's so little dry. You can see it's been dry, but you can see it's not totally wrinkled up, and you can see that texture on the cap, and yet the pore is open to release the spores. Again, a little, I like this where it's sort of monotone. You've just got shades of browns and olives in here, and it really makes for a nice picture, and it's really nicely balanced. So we've got another elm cap here, Hypsizygus ulmarius. Isn't this a fun shot it looks like it must have been uplit a little bit, which is really fun to do. And especially for this shot where it's clearly highlighting all the texture on the stem and the gills. I love the lighting that was done on this. And it's sort of popping out at you, especially with the background, out of focus, purposefully out of focus. The main thing it screams is this beautiful shape, and then the striations there. A thin-mazed gill polypore, Datyloplis confragosa, and this is a beautiful picture of this. Really, just focusing on that underside of this. In the maze, not pulling any. It's complicated enough. You don't need a busy background, and this is really fun. We can really see the detail there. It's not. They're always, the ridges and all vary a lot. It's not just like gills all coming to the middle, but you've got like a little maze here. So this is really, really pretty. And I like that it fills the frame so you can focus on the detail. Amanita muscaria again. I get another beautiful shot. I like the older one. They're starting to crack a little bit. That's kind of fun, and it seems like it's sheltering a child or all. And then you've got the pretty colors on the baby. But look at how pretty that is against the forest there too. This one is you've got the foreground, and then you've got it fading into the back, and you've got a little color way in the back, and so it's really set up very nicely framed. Okay, here's one of my favorites too that have popped up. Well, they're all my favorites at this point. I love them all, but this one is this is just fun. You just want to smile at the color. But I like too that it was taken aerially, kind of straight down, because it sort of looks like you get to see all the folds of it, almost like you're looking at the top of a rose. The nickname is orange peel fungus. Alleria aurantia. And this is another really great shot where there's nothing, it's sort of two-toned. It's not monotone, but it's two-toned, so that the mushroom really pops, and you've got just sort of the grays and the browns there. You do have a leaf there that kind of tells you maybe what kind of forest and what might be in the forest there. But it just pulls your eye right into that color, and the focus on this is really nice because all the folds are in focus, and that's hard to do when you've got kind of a lot going on in that picture. And I like that there's almost like a little baby one coming up in the foreground on the right a little bit too. So this is a really really nice picture.
I feel like all the sticks frame it perfectly too, or they're kind of pointing at it.
Yeah. The next one is Foliota aurivella. Again, another Foliota, golden Foliota. This is kind of interesting too, because there the wood is framing it, and you've got some color on the wood too with the lichens and all. But you get the sense of the texture, and that it's not dry, it's viscous there. You've got some of the dots on it, but it's kind of fun just being framed by those two green trees and nicely filling the frame. We've got an elm cap here, and this is kind of pretty because you're looking down the log, and then the white's popping out at you there. And you see the stem really well. I mean, that's what's so fun about the stipes on these mushrooms, is that they're just so sturdy. And then they're just so bright white popping out of these logs. So I like the way that you first are pulled to the mushroom, but then your eye pulls back into along the log. So it's a very nice angle there. Entomolotum abortivum. This one is sometimes called a stump dumpling or the shrimp of the woods. This one, it's always fascinated me because it's a honey mushroom that has had its own sort of honey mushroom DNA, and it's parasitized by an Entoloma species. And what results is a brand new species of mushroom with different DNA. So it's really a different organism. And so this is fun, but you can see in this one, it's a great shot too, because you can see the ones that have been parasitized, but then you've got a little baby honey mushroom there at about 11 o'clock. Yeah. That tells you, bad news for it. It's about to go. But it's kind of fun. You can see what it was and then where it's going to go. I also like that you've got the mycelium coming down the bark there, so it's really exposed.
That's one of the silvery gray Entoloma mushrooms itself.
Okay,
that's what that is. They're silvery gray, the Entoloma mushroom itself, because you can find the caps of those very close by.
Yeah. It's kind of interesting too what it's all just sitting on. I mean, that tree itself is very interesting. So another morel, a Morchella americana. Very pretty with sort of the white ridges. If you think of the black ridge ones we've been looking at before, or some of the brown ones that we more typically or more common around here. It's kind of fun to see this one. Again, that monotone with even the leaves sort of, play back to the mushroom color. And it's just a really very pretty find there.
Classic.
Yeah, that's right. That's the word, classic. So another kind of honey mushroom Armillaria melia. These are kind of fun. Sorry about the background noise there for a minute. Fun to see the clusters there and going in different directions too. I mean, honey mushrooms tend to do that, but the way this is shot, where you see the stems going left and right, and they're down and they're peeking off at the corner, it's kind of fun to see that against it's textured, but a pretty neutral background too. So the mushrooms really jump out. Amanita muscaria. And I like, there's a little red Russula coming up, emerging on the right there. But these are kind of fun species too. I kind of like these with the, usually we often say, kind of groom your shot and pull out some needles or plants so you can see it. But I kind of like this one sort of nestled right in the grasses there. And they're not gnawed up species either. They're very pretty, very pretty. Pleurotus, Cintrino. This is one always kills me. I can never see this one. You say it. There we go. The golden oyster. So we've seen them up close. We've seen them in clusters. We've seen them on trees, and I like. This is amazing on on not one but two logs going back. And again, I always look at the lighting on these. I love the mottled lighting here. The one on the right is not in the sunshine. The one on the left is a little bit mottled, and some of the yellow. I mean, so often, when you don't have sunshine, the colors actually pop better. And this is a good example. On the right, you don't have direct sunlight, and the yellow is actually a little bit clearer. And then on the left, it's kind of, you can see how the color changes there. But that's a great find and a very nice setup. It really pulls your eye back in there. There's some hygrostomy species here. It's sometimes called waxy caps or wax gills, but if you've seen them, it really does look waxy, in real life. And this is kind of fun because you've got the little ones underneath it and the glowing one, and of course, absolutely no color around it. So usually you can find it in any color, but it's so fun to see it here, really just popping out. I mean, that's your eye doesn't have to go any farther than that. But the little ones are really, really pretty in that. So here's another Syriapis squamosa, getting a tiny bit bigger. We've got a baby one here, but we've seen the small ones, the medium, and this is still kind of in the emerging phase. This one's really fun too, because we're not necessarily looking straight on all of them, but you get the feel of that crackly cap, which is really, that visually the feature you're really looking at. So this is nice. And you can also see it on the stem there, that middle one. On the stem, you can see the texture a little better there. This one was also on a burn site, Amarella, and that's such a great specimen with the ridges so clear. And I like this in this one of them was shadowed in the sun, and I like this one also this one is fully in the sun, kind of face on, and it just lets me study the ridges up a little closer, and that you can see it's a former burn site there. That is a pretty one. So we've got another common oyster, Pleurotus austriatus, and it looks, well, I mean, just from the orientation of them, I mean, it's a limb or a tree or something that's not vertical, but it's fun to see them sort of growing out. You can sort of see the stem attachment there. Sometimes they're bigger and more lush, and you can't see the attachment, but you do see the beautiful caps on them. But this is kind of fun to see it, from the side or not fully developed, because it lets you see that. Here's a yellow coral mushroom, Ramaria flava, and flav means yellow, Ron tells me. I took Spanish, I didn't take Latin, but this is kind of fun. This is I don't think we've seen one of these maybe in a year or two, but this is a very, very pretty mushroom. Again, the focus is good. This is big. It's kind of a deep and detailed mushroom, and the photographer here has gotten some really nice detail, and it's really is framed nicely too by the green in it. And I kind of like that stick too. So here's one that's Ron and John have confirmed is a rare one, and it's a Leucoprinus Criaceus or something. Criaceus, that's it. Boy, that's kind of amazing. It can grow in compost heaps. It can grow in flower pots. And it kind of speaks for itself. I mean, it's tactile, it's detailed. You've got this, kind of brown background, and yet you can still see the matrix that it's typical it's growing in. But it's a beautiful clustering in the side in which whoever the photographer was took this is really effective with that little one in the foreground and all. But that's a stunning one. Jump in, guys, if you know more about it, because here's another old man of the woods. And so this looks like an older one. And it's kind of fun here because the other one was much clearer, younger, and you could see the details on the cat more. And I like this one. The old man is even older here and is aging. And I kind of like that. Yeah, he's owning his age and experience. But again, it's so fun that the photographer here got the detail on the cap and the stem. I mean, that's the fun of this one. And yet it's sort of hidden there. It's not standing out saying, photograph me for a guidebook. It's really composed as a very beautiful, pictorial category picture there. It's kind of fun too that the cap kind of angles down and it almost kind of reveals the stem a little more on this one side. If you'd taken it from the left side, you wouldn't have gotten that, but this is really nicely done. And you've got some kind of fun oak leaves just kind of hanging out in there, and they haven't been cleared away. And I think that's really effective. Here's a red russula. These are, part of the russulas are also called they're part of the brittle cap kind of mushroom. So they're very sturdy. They have a lot of chitin in them. Sorry, I was looking for the right word. So if you pick them up and you were to, dash them against a tree, they're going to shatter or, break a lot more. They're not wet and flimsy. But this is fun because again, you're looking down the tree and yet these colors pop right out at you. And I like in the back when you can see the stem really clearly, the stipe very clearly. I'm going to pause 1 minute and plug in my
I was going to
computer.
ask about those on a stump because we see so much dirt on the stump.
And I'm moving to the left so I can get to You're moving. Okay. Will that reach?
Yeah, because these are typically a mycorrhizal mushroom, so they're typically found growing on the ground, but very, very decomposed, rotted wood is basically dirt.
Okay. Great. Hang on 1 minute because my computer was running out of juice and we're going to shift down here. Now we're propped up. Okay. I'm going to keep rolling here because we're going to take a little time here. Here's a beautiful Chanterelle catharella species. Again, peeking out, and yet here's one where you can really feel that sort of early smooth cap on that. And it's hidden. If you'd kind of unearthed it and just taken a shot, you would have documented it, but this is really a lovely photograph where it's just a reveal photo. Another Amanita muscaria, just another one popping up there, just barely emerging out, and you can see how the patches on it really come out of emerging out of that vulva. So that's
some amanitas, it's the bulb that is what gives it away if you didn't have the other features, and this one shows that bulb as well with those kind of rings.
Around the base of the stump. Yeah. And we have another one. The golden oysters are we've got them going every direction. This is kind of fun where they're just almost climbing the tree there, but going straight up and then tucked around the base there. And it's a shot where it looks like you're just walking along in the forest, and you kind of come across this, but it's very pretty to see it way up on that tree, and it's so dense and thick too. This is an example of a photo where we kind of went around quite a bit on what this could Could be. We were proposing maybe a Cortinarius or so, but it may be an Entoloma or a green gill, purple gilled Lacarius, because they can assume some weird shapes. Ron tells me and all. The gills have a little purplish tint, and yet, I mean, the shape is very unusual. And then the base of it looks almost like hairs on it on the base. The whiter part, and then you've got this interesting ring around the base too, and then you have a crackly cap. So we didn't really reach a conclusion here. We threw out some possibilities, if we've been able to get like a spore print with pink spores, that might have shifted it one way or the other. So we're actually not sure. We sort of stumped the experts, or at least it's unresolved here. But I think the shape is really interesting there, and then you've got the crackly top and the touch of color. Another morel here. This one, it's kind of a fun shot because it looks like it's the size of a small tree or something. It's just kind of interesting angle, but it looks like it's going to grow up to be quite big. But it's a great shot with the woods, and I like how clear the the ridges and the edges are, and it's just kind of out there alone enjoying the forest. There's a beautiful color on this Amanita muscaria, and again, you've got the little one, you've got the bulb of the stem, but the stunning feature obviously is the cap on the large one there. It's just such a beautiful color. This is another honey mushroom species, Armillaria, just growing right out of the side of a birch tree, kind of meaty there, just two of them. And I like the cap, and I like a little bit of color on the base of that. And a little bit of the fern on the right is pretty. And we have another one. I like this. Again, the mottled lighting there is kind of pretty. We're closer up to these on this shot. And you can just really see how rich and dense they are. I'm watching our time here. I'm going to go a little faster. Here's a shaggy mane taken, way down at eye level, and you really get the detail on that. It's such a fun shape on that mushroom, and that was great. And I like it's sort of standing up on its own in the grasses there. But that's
Look at the little droplets on the grass.
Oh yeah,
Wow.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Here's another Boletus edulis, the king bolete or the porcini, and just emphasizes what you know about that mushroom being a very sturdy mushroom, and just sitting there. The pretty colors on the pine needles are kind of fun in that picture too. And we have another one. This is really kind of fun, the golden oyster. The density on that is kind of fun. It's been so fun to find that. So here's an Armillaria melia. Again, we'd seen one before, but it looked a little bit different. Another honey mushroom species. This is kind of fun. It almost looks like some kind of a daisy or something like that. It's an interesting angle to capture that, and it kind of hints at the stem. And we're still shooting even below that little stump behind it. So it's kind of pretty, and the pine needles pick up on the color of it. And here's a great upshot, kind of like that morel before. This one looks like it's going to be a giant plant, the angle that it's taken. But it's fun to see this green spored lepiota kind of from the underside. So often you look at the top, but here it's kind of fun to see, it's a little bit older, drying out, and you get to see all the ridges. You see the annulus, and kind of the underside, with the little bit of a pinkish there before it turns into the green spores is kind of fun to see it in this sort of pinkish mulch. Here is another honey mushroom that is not typical. It's scalloping, curling up on the edges. We don't know which Armillaria species it is, because of course we don't know data here. But it's fun. It's playful with that rippling that you've got there and the overlapping. And just, the lighter color on the edges really just lets your eye play with it. And you want to, it's a very welcoming texture and pattern on that one. Very pretty. And again, you don't need to have a lot of green in the background or other colors. This one, the browns with the white are really the core of the picture. So here's a spectacular jack-o'-lantern. And it's kind of fun to see it against the base of this dead wood that itself is getting overgrown by plants as well. But I think particularly because you don't have direct sunlight on this too, that orange, it's really a great shot because the orange is just popping out clear and the ground looks very, very neutral, but the density is fun. And then even on the right though, you can see the thick stipes that it has. Sometimes they're so dense you don't see them, but if you lift them up, I mean, they're really thick stipes on those. So here we've got the false turkey tail, the Sterium austria, and we've got some beautiful colors there, the stridations, and then the newer edges facing up. And then you've got some other ones kind of in the ground there, but I like the way that this particular species is kind of centered there. What would you say? Anything else about false turkey tail at all, just from a vegetational point of view?
Yeah, but lots of times the Sterium likes to stand up a bit more, it seems, than the.
And on the bottom of the Sterium, you will not be able to see any pores. It's almost extremely smooth looking underneath.
Which distinguishes it from a turkey tail.
Yes, that's one of the things. Yeah.
So here's going completely artsy, this is just fantastic. I love that it's blurred. I love that it's super focused on just one feature. You don't even, if we weren't told, we wouldn't necessarily know that it was a common oyster, but it's flowy and it's sort of monotone. And this is a beautiful piece of art here. The Mycena californiensis, beautiful upshot, and the lighting, it somehow is lighter than the forest, and it doesn't look like somebody used a flash or a ring light, which would have been perfectly fine, but somehow the lighting is captured there, and the detail on those gills is incredible. And then those beautiful stems there, the stipes.
Ron, what's it called when the edge color of the gill is a different color than the gill?
Yeah, it's called marginate.
Marginate, right.
That's one of the key features of that,
yeah,
identifying features on that.
Really beautiful to see that up close.
Yeah. And how the picture was taken where nothing is in focus in the least other than the mushrooms is really nicely done, that length of focus. Mycenia liana,
which also
beautiful.
has marginate gills.
Yeah, isn't that gorgeous? Again, that narrow depth of field, so just even just that one or two of the entire cluster there is in focus. With that kind of color, I think you get, I won't say get away with it. I mean, it's a beautiful strategy on how to photograph this. That one is stunning. So here we have another one of the Russell's bolete.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of fun shooting down. You see the cap a little bit better in this one. And it's sort of a fun one too. It's almost like hidden pictures because here it doesn't stand out. It's sort of, you have to work for it. And I like that in this. It works in this because you can see you find it and it sort of reveals itself. This is one I'd never seen, and we went through every one of our mushroom ID experts, and we're not sure we have a positive ID by any means. It's sort of a mystery. I mean, if I were seeing this in the forest, it almost looks like aliens sort of popping up and talking to each other. But this one is so fun. I mean, the color, the shape, the fact that we're not really sure what it is. We put in a name, but it's there's not dissension, but there's a difference about what people think it might be. So I'm so glad this person included it, even though we don't know, we're not quite sure what it is because it is so unusual. And you've really got some movement. There isn't just a static two-dimensional, two-stalked mushroom there. You've got one almost moving toward the other, and the other bending back toward it.
There are a number of Pluteus species, so it was a good possibility anyhow. So
Okay. Here's the Mycena Helmoptopus. Really fun there to see the detail and looking up again. The gills on those are what make them so beautiful, I think, at least when you've got the backlight and everything, and you've got such a dense example here. So it's really, really pretty, and yet you've still got the forest behind it. And a jump-steaded puffball. That's kind of fun. I don't know if it's a wide angle lens or not, but it's got that effect, even if it wasn't taken with a wide angle. I think because of the directions of the pine cones and the forest and the leaf, and yet you've got this spectacular specimen here with a great detail on all the studs on that puffball. Agaricus leptocaulus. This one, I gather, Ron, is really it's rare. Is that right?
Yeah, I've never seen it before, too. So
It's from that distinctive annulus, both of them. They're sort of perfect.
Right.
Sometimes they tear or fall down or disintegrate.
is it possible some of these are from Mexico as well? So,
it's possible. Yeah.
but this is very distinctive, just
Yeah.
gorgeous.
Yeah, you can, and one you can see the underside, and the other you see the cap, and very nicely placed. This has always been a fun one. A Rhodotus palmatus. Sometimes I think 1 or 2 years has won first place because this is such a showy mushroom and so fun to see all the ridges and all. It's the nickname is wrinkled peach, and this is really fun. It's fun to see it in the mosses there too. You got so much tactile stuff going on there, and the color is just beautiful on that one. Boy, I got to pick up the pace here. Okay, we're going to go fast, guys. Apologies to the Iscoderma resinosum. You've got that gutation again there. This is fun because you're looking sort of straight on. Sometimes you get them where you're looking down and you don't see the beauty underneath. This is another Stump the Expert ones here. We just didn't have enough information to fully categorize it, but it's kind of interesting because, it's got a slimier, more viscous top, and it looks like a kind of a dry stalk there, but it's a pretty picture because it sort of mirrors the colors in the background, and yet it's centered, it's commanding the picture, but it's a lovely picture. Here's some Mycena. Again, we can't see the base there to really categorize it. But very interesting juxtaposition of the two clusters at two different ages there in that moss. Okay, here's the mouthful, Genopolis dryophilus, which would be the bigger mushroom on the left, with Spinellus, you got to give me an A on this, fusager on the Mycena, Haemopolis on the right. So, but it's the mushrooms are being parasitized, the Genopolis and then the Mycena, and these are always so fun because the parasites, they're just so photogenic and it looks like something from outer space. But you've got two species here, not just one, and they're playing off each other. But that was really a fun shot there. Here's another Mycena, Haemopolis, and look, beautiful lighting on that. I mean, I don't need to explain that at all, and yet you've got that gorgeous color. It's a bleeding Mycena, so it will.
Hematopus. That's what hema means. I mean,
Yeah.
that's yeah.
Like,
Bleeding,
okay.
hematopus.
Okay.
Yep.
And if it's cut, it really bleeds red fluid, right?
And a lot of times, actually, it does. Just you may see it that way. It's one of the ones that you see a lot of gutation, and it'll have red droplets.
Okay.
Striking red droplets on it.
Yeah. But beautifully framed, and again, not centered, because a lot of times it's fun to center, but this is one that's perfect, not being centered, and then the lighting was fabulous. So another Amanita muscaria variety, muscaria, right? And kind of fun shape. It's almost like a shine on there, and a little purple touch on the green. It's kind of a little gem there. So here's a fun one. The common name is Mexican Caesar, Amanita basii. And it's kind of fun really seeing it just coming out of the vulva there, but that shiny yellow is spectacular. I have never seen one, but that's the smoothness there, and you don't have patches on this Amanita. Iscoderma resinosum. This, I think, Ron, you said this is kind of a young one, but you've got that guttation there. It's kind of fun to see the light on it. You usually see the top side darker and the edges darker. Here's another thin maze gill polypore, and it's fun because the maze again is so detailed here, and you've got a number of them growing up and down from each other, and you can kind of see the attachment on the log, but it's fun. And then the white edges really, I think, make this particular picture very, very pretty, that you're able to capture that in focus.
I think it's conflagrosa.
Oh, thank you. So the next one, we've got Cyanthus striatus. It's a bird's nest, and it's you can see those little packets inside. They're packets of spores. I can't remember, Ron, what was the name of the packet? What you call the packets? Remember, Kat?
They're called periodoles.
Okay, and they're covered in they're inside these little bird nests. So whether it's a drop of rain or something opens up the tops on these and reveals those spore packets, and then they disperse that way. So technically they're in kind of the gastroid fungi group, kind of like puffballs. For that reason, they're not on gills, and we've got Coprinus ultimentaria, and this is nicknamed the alcohol inky. It's very toxic if eaten after drinking alcohol. So if you're going to drink, don't drink so much you can't identify this species and eat it. But it's fun. It looks like it's just like a little group hanging out there. And again, it pops out of the picture. It's very pretty, the setting, and even that little touch of red in the back. Okay, we've got about 10 to go here, and then we'll run through the scientific and the other. So Lycoportum echinatum, a spiny puffball. And it's, again, really well done, well focused, and you've got a couple of them there. I've usually only just seen one, but maybe they do grow in groups. I don't know. But that's kind of a nice find and very nicely photographed. Here's a purple tooth polypore. If you remember the shot we had earlier, just a single one that you could really kind of see the purple. This is kind of fun because you see it en masse on a log. It looks like in a fall forest. It doesn't look kind of as purpley, but it's very pretty to see it in this kind of coloring. And it's kind of a stair step. Your eye just kind of gets pulled way back into that picture. And then the upper ones with the little white edges on the side make it a very effective picture. I like that sort of yellow gold palette on something called purple tooth polypore. It works.
The spider web connects them all.
Yeah. Okay, the next one is a split gill. Schizophyllum, culminae. Very pretty gill ones. We've had a couple winners in the past in different categories with this, just because it's so pretty and so tactile, and it feels almost fuzzy, but you have those beautiful gill patterns there. Bulgaria inquinans, again, the black jelly drop. This is kind of fun because they really are in straight lines. They're not just mottled patches, but it's kind of fun on this log to have them a little more lined up there. It's a very, very pretty picture, and the focus on that is very nice. So we've got Pholiota laminata. I think Ron is saying that it could be categorized as Pholiota aurivella, but it's hard to tell apart with tell apart the two apart without more detail. Very pretty on that tree, and they're really quite wholesome caps on this specimen. They're not falling apart, and so you've got the stair step there and the color popping. Here's another one of the green staining fungus. The other ones we saw, like the elf cap, the little 3 or 4, kind of a little more brightly green elf cap in one of the other pictures that was submitted, and this one is showing a little more of the stained wood. Kind of pretty pattern on the wood that just happens to be there, but it's fun to see just the stain there. Kind of a nice shot with the contrast. So this is, a double header. It's Astrophoria Lepidotes, and it's a powder cap is the nickname for the little white ones, and they are growing on a blackening russula. There's some groups of russula, some species that turn black as they age and all, or if you injure them, sometimes they turn black or sometimes red, but these are kind of fun because the water and the dirt collect in the funnel of the russula and I think help support the powder cap. That's kind of a fun one. And we have another Mycena liana here, the orange bonnet. Very pretty contrast with the dark log, and then the little cluster in the back kind of hanging out there. But pretty, you can see the cap and you can see up under the cap on that one, which is really nice. And Amanita muscaria, variety muscaria, again, the red one. And what's fun on this one is just the base, the vulva. It's just very clear, nothing modeling. You can just see it bulging up. And then it looks huge against those thin trees in the background. So it's a very effective photo and it fills the frame. Here's a Foliota species, again, without more features. We're not sure which species, but it's very pretty and it's up close. We've seen so many clusters of them, and this is really a much closer look at the cap. And then the leaves are kind of, set that off too. Very nice. Here's an Inocybe lilacana, the lilacana for the lilac on it. It's a little bit glutinous and shiny on this one. It's really pretty with the foliage there, kind of peeking out. And we have another pheasant back or dryad saddle, straight head down on it. Again, very pretty. And then the green in the trunk. This one is stunning, the Amanita jacksonii. The lighting on this is great. It's fun. And then you've got you've got the mushroom in the back, that sort of beckoning, but your eye still gets pulled forward. I mean, it's the way the focus is on this, and you've got the little tiny, the moss little pieces popping up and all. That's really a beautiful picture. And another one with great focus here. We're thinking it's a Lacaria amethystina. Our experts aren't completely sure, but that's their best guess. So I'm assuming it's an amethyst Lacaria. Isn't it? It's fun just because the color in the stem is in the orange and the warm fields, and it pops up into the purple, and it's solo. It's jumping out of the moss, and that the way that the focus has been set on that is so effective. And I will say the same about this, the Morchella americana. Kind of interesting with the vignette around the edges that really pulls your eye in. And it's kind of got the plant in there, and then boom, you're looking down right at that little one in the good focus on the ridges. You really need that on morels, and this one has it. Here's another Mycena species. This one white, clearly jumping out, just a little ethereal. I think the focus here wasn't getting super detail. It's not out of focus, but it looks kind of ethereal there. And the reds and the greens sent that off. So I like that very much. So this is a Cortinaria species. We don't know what, but the focus here is so fun because it's on the cortina, the reddish threads that are running down that initially kind of cover the gills, almost like a kind of a veil. It's a membrane that covers the gill called a partial veil, but they're very cobwebby and thin. and all the Cortinarias have them, but it's fun because it's just visible. It's not up on the gills anymore. It's just kind of hanging down on the stem. So that's really a fun detail photo here, and clarity everywhere. And that was really well done. So here's the Amanita muscaria, but not just sitting there in the woods. It's putting a mandala. How do you say that? But mandala. But it's kind of fun to see it sort of. It speaks to you because it's not trying to be something in a guidebook. It's really like, look at me. I'm part of the forest. I've got all this decoration in it, and it's very fun. So, and I love all the different colors on that. Okay, I think two more. Another Boletus edulis, fun with the pine needles leaning over it, and just two sturdy specimens, a little bit viscous on the top, really nicely framed. So this is fun. It's surprising I don't see them at my house, but these Pizizas domiciliana, they commonly grow indoors on basement floors or rugs. So it looks like it's on a rug. Kind of crazy. Almost looks like
On a wet mop.
Is that what it is? Yeah, you're right. I think it's a wet mop.
So gross.
Glad I don't see that at my house. It's fun to see, in a slide. That's so cool. Here's one, Fuligoseptica, often called, it's a slime mold, and it's often called dog vomit or scrambled eggs. And this is really a fun one that almost looks like it's sheathing the tree there. It's very beautiful, especially with the black at the base. It's in the plasmodial phase of the slime mold there. So it's kind of expanding. And last but not least, Amanita muscaria, very pretty with the basket in that picture, just pops out, and the two together are very pretty. The skirt on that large one is great. You could see the ridges again around the bottom. Okay, we are going to go pretty fast through the rest of these. I apologize. It's my first run at this, and clearly I'm running behind. So scientific, technical, real quickly, it's to really provide as much photo information as possible to scientifically identify the fungus. So it can be one picture, it can be a lot, it can be different features. Maybe the mushroom just has one thing that, like, if you have a picture of that, that's the thing that isolates it from everything else. So we're going to go a little quickly, but here's a Cordyceps mexicana, which here the rhinoceros beetle larvae gets infected. And then if you see over to I think it's the right here, it's dead body, it kind of winds up underground, it digs in a little bit, but then the mycelium fills up the larva and takes it over. So you can kind of see the body of it over, like in the right picture. So this is kind of a fun one, but I don't want to see them around my house. Mm-hmm. So we've got the reddening Lepiota. You can see kind of the spore print there, a lot of the different cuts there. The bulbous base is very typical of that. It stains red if it's injured. Where's my next one? Here's the bleeding heart helmet again, the Mycena hemoptopus. And that center picture there again is obviously one of the features that its name takes after, but you get some other good detail on size there and in the location. Here is the Amanita muscaria. This one, I think it says it was done in Mexico, but you've got great shots here of the base, the color, the veil, the gills. It shows a concentric rings at the bottom of the stipe. Here is a Pseulis americanus. It's a bolete, and it usually grows, it's mycorrhizal with white pine trees here. I think what's atypical is seeing one that's sort of a double header up here that's sort of morphed together, that it's not a perfectly round cap. But this one's, you've got the spore print here, which is good. You also can see the different development steps on in the lower left. This is a fun one because this is a Dactylopilus confragrosa. I think I got the pronunciation right, even though I'm not spelling it right. And it's showing the feature called geotropism. This thin maize gill polypore is initially growing, with its base to the ground, so the spores fall out and hit the ground. But when the tree falls over, the next growth, they reorient 45 degrees so that the old shelf might then be like this, but the new ones are going to be growing at an angle. So again, the spores can drop to the ground. So it's kind of fun to show how the spore purpose reorients itself. That's a nice shot there. So here's a yellow-gilled Gymnopolis. This one's nice, I like, because with the microscopic feature, it's got ellipsoid spores with kind of a warty surface, and that's something that helps identify it there. It's got a nice spore print on it and pictures of really nice specimens. So again, the judges for these will, need to know some of the key features to see if they're included in the slides, but and not everybody's got a microscope, but this is a nice slide. So this one's kind of a fun crust fungus, a Glorioporus dicrois. And here's a good example of how it can grow on wood, but it starts out as a crust, and then eventually, as it grows out, you get this effusive, growth, a reflexive looser that sticks out and projects out from the wood. So this is kind of a fun one here, and you can see that. This one is one where we're not quite sure. We put it in Pantherella because it could be either one or the other. It's got a black spore print. In the upper left, it looks a lot more sort of inky capish, but some of the other ones, there's different types of caps here. So it's kind of an interesting specimen or series of specimens from this group taken. But again, there's some nice cross features here and, spore prints and all. Coprinus comatus. This is fun because apparently one of the key features here, if you split the stem down, is you've got kind of a white cord that runs down that stem there, and that's shown there. I think our experts were curious about the white inside of the cap. We're not sure about that, but you see the dark black ink spore print and all, and some really nice shots of that. Phlebia incarnata, very pretty. Always associated.
That didn't.
Am I saying it right?
No, the slide is not. You didn't move.
Sorry.
Oh, there it is.
There we go.
Yeah.
That. Keep up, would you?
Something switched on.
I understand this one is associated with the is it Ostrium Austria, or you can see on the right the turkey tail, right? The false turkey tails.
Yeah, false turkey tail.
Yeah.
Like to grow on those in association.
So that's nice. This slide captures the fact that it's often with that. Of course, the colors on there, the spore print's white, and the crumpled up gill-like structure, which is really cool. On the lower left, you can see it very well. That's a very interesting specimen. Leucoagaricus leucophytes. Very fun to see that on the right, on the big one, all the development stages on there. It's got the bulbous base that you see there, not a vulva, but it's got a thick ring, and you can see the spore print there. So this one again is the purple tooth polypore. Again, this is not on the pictorial side like we saw the other one. This is kind of interesting because it's got the top, the bottom. You can see the ridges there, and so it's got a lot of different angles of it.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to not cuddle with you if you don't go to sleep. Oh, Bill's in there. Stop. The bird's egg.
Yep. Okay, we've got a bird's nest here, Cianthus sterocorus. I think I'm terrible at the pronunciation there, but again, you can see those little peridoles, the packets of spores in there. And I like this because you've got some that aren't uncovered yet, some that are empty, so the packets have been dispersed. You can see it in the matrix that it's growing in. So it's a really nice scientific shot there. So Chloriciboria, oregonocens. Again, this is that green elf cap. A good mix here of seeing the little caplets, but also kind of the staining on the top log on the left. It's a pretty slide in addition to being a nice scientific slide. Lacaria laccata. The This one you can see the umbilicate on the top, kind of as Ron would call it, the innie on the cap. It's typically would have like a white spore print. Gills are sometimes whiter than are shown here, but I mean you can see so many features here from the gills and the stipe on this one. So that's a very interesting one. So
I think the spore print showed up on the bottom of one of the
yeah, you're right. If we go back one,
Yeah.
right, yeah,
right down there.
you can see it.
Yep.
So here's our old man of the woods. He's he was young, then he was old, and now he's sort of being dissected. So it's all over. There's typical red staining when you cut them, and I didn't mention that before, but the lower one picture shows that really well. You've got the shaggy stem, you've got the poor surface, the cracking top. That's kind of fun. It kind of rounds out our old man of the woods slides. Trametes cinnabarina, the cinnabar polypore. I like you've got the far view of it on the tree, and you get right up close, and you can see the texture of the cap. We have the horse mushroom here, Agaricus arvenus. It's kind of fun here. If you were, a typical thing about it is that you can't capture in a photograph or a slide is that it's got a strong almond odor. And that would be key if we had a scratch and sniff, category. Mm-hmm. But you've got a fairy ring there, which is kind of fun. They sometimes grow in the fairy rings. You can see the skirt on the bottom there, the veil, pink gills. That's a nice one. So here's our one again. You saw a couple of these as pictorial, but they're really fun to see together in the scientific thing, because you can kind of compare them. But this is the one we're having trouble. But we've agreed it's not Cortinarius at about 7 p.m. So we didn't have a chance to relabel it.
Paragyrodon.
Yeah, that was the other guess, I think. And so it's fun to see it kind of all together there. So there was one or two of these, I think, that were in pictorial, but putting them together, it's very interesting. And you've got the split of it, you got the underside, you have the gel on it, you got the sort of leather backed look on that one.
That makes this make more sense, this way upper left one.
Okay.
Oops.
Yeah, fun to see them together. So Amanita daucipes, very, very long there, like the stem, the cap. I think the spore print is sometimes more white, I think, Ron, you mentioned, but it's nice cross sections of all of that, and get the underside, the cap. Bulgaria inquinines again, typical features, clustered, black, sometimes even blacker, the texture. Grandisterium purpureum. Nice color on the wood. You can see the crust again, starts as a crust, and then it becomes effusive and sticks out there. Nice color. This is a 2-slide submission, and it's got 10 species on each slide. I mean, they're the same 10, but this first one is the exterior features, and there's like wide variety here. These are all gasteroids, so the spores are enclosed in something. They're not exposed to the air like they might be on gills or a tooth fungi. So there's a membrane enclosing the spores, and then at some point when it ages or gets roughed up or it rains or something like that, if you look at the next slide, then for those same mushrooms, this is the glebe of the spore mass inside that, as Ron was telling me yesterday, I learned this is mixed in with Cabalicium. It's almost like a packing material that helps expel the spores. So some of these will burst open, have a hole in the top. Some of them just, break loose and roll around and break open. But this slide shows the first ones, the different splits and sides where you can see the gleba. Usually they're not exposed till it's mature. So if you're looking at that lower left one, the Cavitaba giantea, that white lower left one, that's when you see those big white puffballs before they've matured into spores, and they're edible at that stage. Panaeolus antillarum. This one typically grows on dung, as it's well documented here. Typically has a jet black spore print, so there's some nice features captured in this one. Agaricus bitorki. Usually it'll respond if you drop some KOH on it. I think it's just got some nice features here. It's got the spore print. Sometimes Ron has advised it grows on rougher ground, so it's interesting to see it on grass here. So this is always a fun one to see, and it's sort of a magic trick if you've got children, Lactarius indigo that looks kind of a dull light blue, and then you cut into it and it bleeds. An indigo latex, and if you cut the stem and all, it turns, bright indigo, as you can see in that top right picture there. It stains blue. You can sort of see the paper in the middle that's got some blue stain on it, and below it is still a kind of a buff spore print, which is kind of interesting. I'd sort of expected a darker spore print, but this is kind of a fun one that captures. So this is fun. Acicalis lignitalis, and it's quite rare, as I've been educated, and it's sometimes called the mealy oyster. But it's fun to see just in 2 pictures. You don't need 100 pictures to show the features here of it, including the underside with the clustering gills on the right. And it's kind of a beautiful picture because that's all you've got. You don't have a whole bunch of forest in the background. You're just looking at how this thing is growing with the other one, how it's attached. You can see the underside. And for this one, you didn't need 10 pictures. This one you see around a lot, Agaricus campestris, the meadow mushroom. Sometimes it's in fairy rings as well, as you see there. You can see a ring. Sometimes it's got a ring, sometimes it falls off. Pink gills that wind up turning brown, and then you have a brown spore print. The top middle picture is fun to see the progression of it, and the tapered stem on that is typical, and you've got a bunch of measurements there, including the little ones. Here's another just 2-picture one that's interesting. I've never seen this, a quilted green russula parvi resins. That's got quilting, and you can see the green quilting on the top, and you can see the really tight, white, even gills on the bottom. And okay, that's it on scientific. It's a nice mix this year, and we had a lot more. So I'm really, and they weren't sort of all the same style. So I like that. Okay, we're gonna blast. Okay, ready? We're gonna be done by 9:30. 10 minutes. We're going through the humor. Yeah. Okay, here's our first one in humor or anything activity. Here's one that's funnier after you eat a few. And how a Hemimycena works out. So that's kind of fun. The bend in the cobweb. I like that. A mighty nice mushroom with a little mite on the branch there. The young apprentice. Isn't that great? I love that with the just kind of in the background. All dressed up and nowhere to go. Puffball butt. It's hard to name it anything else. It's undeniable. Here's nesting dolls. I like the upshot on this too. That's kind of a nice way to do that.
Destructive foliota.
Yeah. Oh, is that what it is?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, here's an enormous puffball. Now all we need is a 20-pound chocolate bar and a 10-foot graham cracker. Chicken tenders. Do you want to build a snowman? This is a fun one because the submitter was at an exhibit in Italy where they were exhibiting 200- and 400-year-old models of mushrooms that people would make out of clay and beeswax and stuff to try to document which ones were poisonous. And it's kind of fun because if you blow it up, you can read the description in English on the right there and then see those examples. So that was kind of fun that that person put it in. Age before beauty. And here we have, I'm not even trying to pronounce it, but it gives rise to the staff of life. So isn't that beautiful? Mm-hmm. So here we have the Indian pipes or the ghost pipes here with the russula right there in the Lactarius and the hardwoods. Luscious lashes. That's kind of interesting taken through the little microscope or the little, yeah. First timers, first find.
Mhm.
Nicely done. And potluck polypore. Oh, that looks great. I like the cabin feel there too. Centipede mushroom.
Whoa.
This was a year for puffball, creations. You've been slimed. That's a great specimen. More chicken tenders. This one with some hot sauce. This one didn't have a title, but it's fun. It's just, I think in the other category, but it's kind of a fun honey mushroom, right? And kind of pointing north and west, and
So,
all my ducks in a row.
oysters in-
To boldly go where no mushroom has gone before. That's a good shot. I like this one. I've heard of a blue-ringed octopus, but how about a blue-ringed mushroom? Breviphus variety acreor. That's very cool. 2 fawn mushrooms for 2 little deers. That's great. New life for old mushrooms. I love the one that's painted there on the lower left. Why not?
They're all-
Past Optimus Prime. We couldn't even figure out what that was. That's great. Almost looks like a little lantern, Don't take my mommy. Right, so bolete, maybe a bicolor bolete there.
I can figure out what to do.
And here's one, candle in the wind. So Ron was telling me too, this is like, did somebody want to mute there? I think we have some background noise there. An orange tree slime. It's symbiotic community bacteria and yeast, like a kombucha. So that builds up. So that's really interesting, and actually a very interesting shot in the nature's artwork. Looks like a mushroom shoot out by a mushroom, like by a slug on a mushroom. Can we all say Pula La Juana? Pula La Juana, right? I can't. Those are nice pictures of that. Where old puffballs go to die. Hey guys. Boy, I'd love it if my child showed up with a tray of, looks like hen of the woods, right? Family foray. Very nice. And so nice that they're doing it so young too. I mean, and clearly finding things. Honey spiral. Fried morel. Ghost from Morel's past. That's kind of fun. We have peekaboo. So we have an emerging amanita there. If there is magic on this planet, it is contained in water. It's kind of a ghostly glowing puffball. I've never taken a shot at night. In search of Bigfoot. Just sort of see the guy in the background. Zombie invasion. There's another one of those powder caps in the blackening Russula. Upskirt. That's a great shot. Yeah, isn't that pretty? That could be in pictorial too. Bear tooth in a cave. And we have doggy pincushion. Just that, over your head. There you go.
Oh,
Does that grow on dung or dog? Is that the
oh my
thing about it?
gosh.
Isn't that
What
incredible?
is that, Ron? Is that
It's the one before.
stemonitis?
That's very cool. Actually, a gorgeous picture too. So the next one, blah. That's great. And even the focus is perfect. Mount Mushmore. We have Old Man of the City. Boy, our old man is getting around tonight. That's kind of a fun. Some Old Man of the Woods. We have Old Man of the City. My first morel and MMS foray. That's pretty good. Well done on the first foray. We have Mushroom from Outer Space. BB-8 from the Star Wars. You're ahead of me there. There we go. All right, next one. Gunk in my eye. I've got gunk in my eye. That's funny. Next one, a giant parasol. Nice one.
Nice selfie.
Arranged by nature. Triculoma populinum. Wow. And we have Meowsprue. That's a great action shot, you know. Orchid-esque. This one I love because it's really moving. Epic jump over mushroom. That's amazing. Like if you even didn't have the mushroom, it's an amazing shot, but it's even more so with like this mushroom in the foreground that looks like it's a giant jump. That's great. Even the lighting is great on that one. Accidentally had my camera flipped when photographing. Oops, been there. Before and after, they're existing side by side. That's very cool. Yeah, so there you can see the gleba, you know. Amanita candicorna, even with the spores. We have hobgoblin skull. That is kind of spooky. And we have sweet stuff, honey and jelly. Fun that they're kind of together. And our last one, lobsters at knife point. Boy, I love those lobsters. That's a beautiful shot. Well, we pulled it in at 9:30. Sorry, we're a little over, but boy, we had some great submissions. So thank you, submitters. The judges have till the first week of January to kind of finish going through all these, and we announce them then at the annual awards luncheon, which is on February 3rd. So you'll be able to sign up. I think you'll get an email, but at any rate, you can sign up in January on the MMS website. So that banquet is always a ton of fun. As they mentioned, we've got the silent auction that goes. It's very fun. It's just a nice community event, and it culminates in the awards of the photography and the Golden Chanterelle Award. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Howard and Ron and Kathy and John and everybody that helped pull these together and work on the IDs on all these. It was a lot, but very fun.
Nice job, Nan.